Jingle bells, jingle bells.
I would wait to see who broke first.
To edit that part out of the video.
Oh, I want you to leave it in because that was the whole entire point of it was to see who broke first. For those of you listening on the radio, myself, London, Sean, the show actually started about 10 seconds ago. We've just been sitting here staring at each other on the Zoom call. I was trying to see who broke first. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is the festive period, and it is time for the worst 120 minutes in all of sports. That's right. It is time for the Too Many Guys soccer show. If you're just joining us for the first time via podcast or via Zoom, we thank you. We should probably apologize for our suckiness in advance. But like that Christmas fruitcake, we stink and we just keep coming back around on a regular basis. If you're a regular listener, I really don't know what to say to you. Apparently, you're a sadist and a glutton for punishment. You keep continuing to put yourself through this on a regular basis. Nonetheless, it is time. It's the most wonderful time of the year. That's right. It is time once again for the holidays. We are going to give each other way too many gifts, or none at all. Get absolutely drunk, and eat way too much food. We're going to see who spikes the eggnog, even more than the eggnog's already been spiked, and get that one Christmas gift that you can't possibly re-gift because it stinks too doggone much. Yes. And then, just for toppers, yes, the Premier League announced, well, the whole entire English Football League structure announced they will not be closing down for the festive period. So while the rest of the world goes on break because of the outbreak of the Omicron virus, instead, I was going to introduce you, but I'll get to you. When did COVID-19 become a fraternity? And why is it throwing off chapters and probates?
That's pretty good. Well, you know, the virus has to stay alive. So what better way to stay alive than to just keep reforming yourself until you can just sort of be around and nobody notices anymore. So
yeah, well, like, I want to know when
it'll be the way of the common cold.
I want to know when COVID. I wanted to know who gave permission to COVID to start indoctrinating chapters and having lines, right? Because we're on Omicron. Next time around, we're going to be on Alpha, Mu, Omega.
Yeah, for real. It's going away to hurricane names next, probably.
Anybody who, to all of my members of the Do Not Buy 9 who may or may not be listening, you'll get that joke. To the rest of you, I don't know what to tell you.
Sadly,
and Mike,
that joke.
I'm joined, as always, by my partner in all things podcasting, producer Stead. How goes it, sir?
That's going pretty good. Going pretty good on holiday break. So
cheers to holiday break.
I always say that my Christmas day begins on the last Friday of the school year before I get to go away for 2 weeks. So that's going to be nice. Just going to sit back and relax, do some stuff around the house, put my feet up, watch as much sports as I can, and hopefully remember that I do have to go back to work one day.
Yes, you do have to go back to work.
Mm-hmm.
But thankfully, you don't have to go back until the 3rd, so you at least get that one day after New Year's. I'll tell you what, going back on the 2nd is the worst.
It is.
It is the worst.
It is. That's the absolute worst. That's the absolute worst.
Unfortunately, I can't go up to Philadelphia this year. My back has been bothering me, and my wife just had wrist surgery, so we won't be able to drive up to Philly. Somehow me with a bad back and her with a bad wrist and the Mummers Parade just don't seem to mix to me. So this is the 2nd year in a row that I will miss going to Philly. That just means that I will make up for it. But I say that to say those times when I have driven up to Philly and I've had to drive down on New Year's Day after waking up early to watch Manchester United play, going and seeing the Mummers Parade, and then up to my uncle's for New Year's Day with the family, then doing the cannonball run back down here to go back to work on the second. Yeah, the second's a rough day. Really bad, really bad. For London Sean, and the rest of you who don't know what the Mummers are, it is a Philadelphia tradition that dates back, well, to a point that nobody knows. And the best way to describe it is the world's most jerry-rigged parade that features a bunch of Union pipe fitters dressing in drag and strolling down the street playing Led Zeppelin on a string band or on a brass band with banjos.
Which song?
Anyone that you can think of.
Whole lot of love.
Anything. Like it's a bunch of Union pipe fitters dressed in drag playing Led Zeppelin on a banjo.
Okay.
Now you'll agree with me. Is that the best description that you can come up with for the Mummers Parade?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing you can add is really they spend the whole prior year preparing their get-ups and their costumes to it. So it's impressive. I don't get it, but it's impressive.
Nobody gets it. It's just an excuse to stand out on a street corner in Philadelphia in broad daylight and drink copious amounts of alcohol. And if you're ever in Philly on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, because Philadelphia shuts down at 12:01 on midnight because everybody's got to get ready for the Mummers Parade the next day. 2nd Street in Philly, in South Philly, after the parade is the place to be. Everybody's in a good mood. London Sean, how goes it over in jolly good England? I know not that well because you guys are sucking in the ashes right now.
Yeah. We won't mention that as pod.
Oh, we will not talk about
by the time we next have a pod, it'll all be over and forgotten, and we'll be waiting for them to come over here next year. But anyway, been very good, thank you. Been a great week. In the same way that Arsenal had started their worst ever league campaign since 1954, it also seems a very long time since we've won 3 Premier League games on the trot. Probably since 1954 as well. No, probably not actually, but very nice to pick up 9 points. Has anyone heard whether they're allowing fans to go to these games during this festive period, or has that not been decided yet?
You would know better than we would.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything.
I've been asleep for the last 2 hours, so I don't know whether anything had been decided.
Nah, there was nothing. So were they.
Yeah.
So no worries about that. You would know better than we would whether there were going to be fans at the game. We will be lucky over here if there are fans in the bar to watch the games.
Oh, has it got that bad over with you? Has it? Okay.
Well,
yeah. We haven't gone into we haven't gone into lockdown at all. But funnily enough, over here, people are still deciding that going to the pub is a good idea. The shops are pretty empty, but the pubs are pretty full. So that's good. So obviously now they'll have football to show in the pubs, which will mean that more people will go to the pubs. And hopefully we'll all have COVID by about a week on Friday, because it's apparently escalating, doubling every day or something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hopefully not Friday. Friday is Christmas. We all want you to be able to celebrate. But
well, funnily enough, Christmas is Saturday here. Is it Friday with you, is it? Or
no, it's Saturday.
Oh, no, it's Saturday. Sorry.
Oh, good.
I'm a day off. I'm thinking about.
You were just talking about eating yourself silly again, which I think you did not only about 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yep, that was Thanksgiving, but we're not doing. We are not doing turkey again for Christmas. We're doing duck breast.
Okay.
We're doing duck breast.
Okay. And as a Man U fan, why the hell are you wearing a blue Santa hat?
Because it's got Baby Yoda on it.
Right. He dresses in grey.
I don't know. I have a Baby Yoda Santa hat. I don't care whether it's true. So I'm going to wear it.
Don't wear blue.
He's coming over.
Yeah, but it's not sky blue. It's more Everton blue than anything else. So I can wear it. But it's got Baby Yoda on it.
Okay. Yeah, no, it is a bit more Everton blue.
Mm.
So apart from that, everything good in the UK. Top of the league, hotting up. Man City getting a bit cocky. Liverpool, bit of a slip up. Chelsea proving what they are. Just about the best team in London, but only just.
Only just.
So apart from that, it was all good. Yeah.
Larry, how goes it, my friend? Good to see you.
Goes well, gentlemen. Goes well. Can't complain.
Getting ready for the festive period up in the great tri-state area, the other tri-state area. You say the tri-state area around here, Stead, everybody thinks you're talking about the DMV. When you say
Yeah, but no one really says that around here.
yeah,
kinda
everybody
weird.
says the DMV.
Yeah.
But then if you say it in North Jersey, everybody thinks that you're talking about New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
It's really Philadelphia, Jersey, and Northern Delaware. So saith me. Let it be written, let it be done. Life going well up there, Larry?
Yeah, I mean it's cold, but it's it's not bad. Sun comes out. It's can't really complain. It's a good time or good weather for Christmas. People are still able to get outside and do some things, and it's good. Stressful as I'm sure we all are during this time of year, but I can't complain.
I don't know. Stet and I are off, so we're not feeling any stress.
I'm still working. I got preparing for
You got to close out the year.
a kid, for Christmas and all that stuff. So
Yeah,
it's
you
all
got
fun.
you got to close out the year. I know how that goes. Get those last minute sales in so that you can finish the year on a high note.
Yep.
So,
So just trying to stay focused on it. That's all.
yeah, good. Good. Hopefully, it all goes well. So, this episode is going to be a little bit different. Normally, I assign people slots and we come in and we talk about a specific thing. We do want to talk about a specific thing, but because we are at the midway point of the league for most of them, this forms a perfect time to sit back and talk about some stories and things going on in other leagues that we may not have talked about as much. Like we can spend 10 minutes talking about Ligue 1 today, Stead. I don't think we're going to make it for 10 minutes.
No, but we can make it for 5. I got a
five.
couple things we can talk about from League.
Yeah, we can
Absolutely.
try.
Yeah.
We can talk about what's going on over in Spain. We haven't spent enough time talking about Barcelona and the failings of Atletico Madrid, or the fact that Juve is a dumpster fire. So our gift to you is, you dear listener or watcher, is that we're not going to spend the entire time talking about the Premier League. With the caveat being, we're going to start by talking about the Premier League. Or such that it was. More than half the fixtures this week were canceled due to COVID concerns. It did come out today that the Premier League had a meeting that they were going to play the festive fixtures. Now, all of us know London Sean has the most experience with it. The festive period in England is probably the most jam-packed part of the season. It's not unusual for teams to be playing once every 48 to 72 hours. I know Man U will be playing at 3 o'clock local time, so 6 UK time. No,
8
UK time. 8 UK time on the 27th and the 30th. A couple of years ago, they played like twice within less than 48 hours. It might have been 46 by the time they did. And the Boxing Day fixture is just up and down a tradition. So while every other country decides, like a good school system, they're going to take a Christmas break, England says, no, like the Christmas goose, we will give you more. So let's start with our resident Englishman, Sean. How did last weekend go in England with the cancellations of all the games up and down the pyramid? And how has the news gone over in the UK that these games will actually be played? As you said, we don't know whether there'll be fans there, but as of right now, we do know that the pubs will be open.
Yes.
Which, depending on start times and cancellations and stuff like that, mean that people may actually be able to get out and watch their teams play.
Well, to be honest, the government have made such a cock up over just about everything over here, including still not really making any decisions about what we're doing for Christmas. The only thing they had left to bargain with was the football. And let's face it, if they'd suddenly cancelled the football, there'd have been rioting out on the streets. Maybe not the streets of Budley, but maybe not the streets of London, because everyone seems to have deserted central London. By the way, if you want to come over to do some tourist stuff, now's the time to come and do it, because there ain't anyone fucking out there whatsoever.
Is anything
We'll
open?
walk through London in about 10 minutes. Sorry?
I said, is anything open to be able to do the tourist stuff?
It's a good
You know,
point.
the pubs are, but-
Probably not, but you'll be able to see it all from the outside in its glory. So, and yeah, life would not quite be the same without our traditional Boxing Day football. 2 days after Boxing Day, obviously you've got to have a game on New Year's Day, and the last bit of the tradition is that the first round of the FA Cup gets played on the first Saturday in January. So that's all going ahead. So yeah, it's all been rescued. I think that they're gonna. You asked me what happened about last weekend. Well, that was pretty painful. Pretty painful for the Villa fans who thought they were going to have a football game until up about an hour till kick-off. And I have to say, I'm bloody amazed that the Leeds Arsenal game went ahead. But as an Arsenal fan, we were obviously delighted. And all of the three big teams played on Sunday, didn't they? So it wasn't a total disaster. There was at least some football to watch this weekend. Oh, and a couple of lower league games as well.
Yeah,
I think everyone is thoroughly looking. Sorry,
I was going to say, I think that the odd fallout from this was, I don't think there was a 1500 kickoff on Saturday. I think the early
not
game,
in the Premier
Premier
League, but
League,
there were loads in the lower division. Well, not loads. About half of every league survived, I think, basically. But let's face it, the figures are not good in the UK. I think we're now over 100,000 cases were being announced daily, and there were predictions that this could double unless we sort of pulled our socks up and went back to our social distancing measures. But of course, it takes 4 days for you to catch it, so the figures could start getting worse. So it could be that by the time these games come up next Sunday, the government may have changed its mind about whether fans are allowed in or not. And if you want my honest opinion, I think it devalues the whole competition. Nothing anyone can do about it, but you're not playing the whole league on the same level that you were 2 or 3 months ago. So I think it's a bit of a shame, but personally, I think it's been, sorry, excuse the language, but it's been buggered, as they say. And let's hope it doesn't get buggered too much more.
this is not, though, just a England thing.
No, it's not.
Larry, instead, and I will tell you, this is not just an England thing. We had 3 games in the NFL postponed this week, including my Philadelphia Eagles hosting Stead's Washington Team of Football, the WTF, as I like to call them.
Yeah.
Which should have been played on Sunday, and I was very excited because it was going to, if it had been played on Sunday, the Washington team of football would have featured about 7 guys that they I'm sorry, not 7, 22 guys playing both ways that they picked up at 7-Eleven in PG County.
7 guys.
Friday
Most of
night.
the guys that were on the list aren't even players. They're like practice squad guys.
I mean, they were calling everybody that they could call. I'm pretty sure that they didn't start putting out a casting call and picking up dudes at the 7-Eleven saying,
hey, if there's any county that you know you can go and pick up some football players, it's PG County.
They were going into PG County, rolling up on Bubba and Ray and Mookie and them.
Dude, just go to DeMatha High School. They got men on that team. You see that high school? They got grown men to play on the football team. These boys are huge.
Hang on, Mike. You're talking about a game that didn't happen. Is that what you're
It's gonna
doing?
happen on Tuesday.
Yeah, we're talking about a game that's going to happen tomorrow. I just wanted it to be played when it was supposed to be played because my team would have won. Now,
Well,
Okay.
hey, don't get ahead of yourself.
What?
It is Philly.
okay, we could have beat you without all of the guys that you had. You had nobody.
All I'm saying is, y'all are 6 and 7 too. So it's not like both of these teams are great.
One of the things that I don't quite understand is how is a 2-day gap going to really change this? You know, it's just something where they were saying that there's a lot of these.
No, it's listen.
tested, false
it's-
positives.
They didn't necessarily test positive. You could have been considered a close contact. So if you're a close contact, you have to go on the COVID list, and then you have to
And-
still test negative before you go. But just you don't necessarily test positive to be on that list. So
Okay.
so I'm sure once the quarterback got put on the list, then all of a sudden they're like, well, no, one. I mean, come on, the other guy nobody cares about. But
Kyle
yeah,
Allen
but
was
no
on
one
it.
cares about him. But once the starter got put on the list, then it's like, okay, then they push to move the game because no one wants to watch a quarterback who hasn't played football. And I don't even know who the guy's name was, but there's nobody wanted to watch that. So of course you cannot cut into NFL money. You know that very well. Can't cut into their money. So once the lure of the game completely disappear, they're going to move the game. Yeah.
Well,
which
the bigger
I don't
question.
agree with you. I thought they should have played it. Yeah, play the game.
That's the bigger question. And I'll wrap this all up in a bow and bring it all back together. Because we saw the games get postponed. It's easier to postpone or reschedule a regular season game, be it in the NFL. And I was using the NFL as an illustration to say that it is it's a global problem. It's just not the Premier League, different leagues, the NFL. The rules in the NFL that I know are if you are a vaccinated player, you have to return, and you are a close contact or you test positive, you have to return 2 negative tests in 48 hours. Hence, when Larry, when you're asking what does the 2-day difference mean, it gives them 48 hours to get more people off the list so that you can have a more competitive product.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier to reschedule a game. We saw Spurs get disqualified. We talked about this last week. They were officially disqualified from the European Champions Conference, Europa Conference League.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah. Look, I left my iPad out in the other room, so I don't have it right now. So Europa Conference League. Thank you. For failing to play that game against Rennes a couple of weeks ago. We talked about it last week with Loafs. We said, we went over, they had 8 players and 5 front office staff test positive. UEFA rules say that if you have 13 A-list players, including a goalkeeper, you have to play. Right now, what we have seen a lot is a European knockout stage game in a third tier competition that, let's be honest, if you weren't a Rennes fan or a Spurs fan or people like us who talk about it, you probably wouldn't even known that game either was going to get played or didn't, right? A couple of regular season, midweek, and weekend Premier League games, a lot, but they can be made up. What we haven't seen yet happen is what happened in the playoffs this year to Philadelphia Union and what happened to Tampa Bay Rowdies last year, which is when you get to a semifinal or a final, you have a COVID outbreak. And then the decision really needs to be made as to, do you play this game? Do you cancel this game? How do you go about doing it? USL last year, when Tampa Bay Rowdies had an outbreak, canceled their championship and simply said that one wouldn't be awarded. But that's the second division of American soccer. Again, unless you're like us or you're a Tampa Bay Rowdies fan, you may not have even known that game was about to be played in the first place. MLS semifinals are a bit of a different game. They have sponsors involved and things like that. 11 players, including 2 goalkeepers, and half the starting lineup for the Philadelphia Union are on the COVID list and not able to play in that semifinal. but MLS makes it be played. So we're going to start with this. If we continue to see these outbreaks and we get to something that actually matters, a quarterfinal, final, a semifinal, final of the FA Cup or the Champions League, you know, the last 2 games of the Premier League, when we need to have a title decided, do we think that they force them played and devalue the product? Larry, instead you alluded to it, like if you go out, and we saw this with the NFL last year when they made the Denver Broncos play without a quarterback, they had a wide receiver playing quarterback, that product didn't look too good. Do you postpone it? Do you declare it null and void? Do you force it played? And do we have any idea that UEFA or the FA actually has a clue what they should do and what they would do? Now, Sean, I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna leave you for last because you actually live over there. So your opinion. So Larry, I'll give you the first crack at what you think would happen in this situation.
It's kind
Or
of tough.
should happen.
I mean, it's not fair to the union what happened. It wouldn't be fair to the winner of the Western side, you know, if they had to sit and wait for another week to go by to play. You know, it's not fair to NYCFC who was ready to go. But it's, you know, it's just a lot of unfairness going around. Now, I mean, I don't know if this means that they're going to start opening up more roster spots for teams to be able to play. I mean, as we see, I mean, as we saw with the, you know, in the NFL, you saw that this was pushed back a couple of days with the Eagles and Washington strictly because of star power not being able to be there and the product they're going to put on. We see it with the NBA a lot now, where is it going to come down to just who's able to play, the star power, the product they're going to put out there? Or is it going to come down to, look, we just need to play this and make it fair. If you guys get COVID, if you can field a team, then you field a team. You know, I don't think there's any right answer that we can come up with right now, other than kind of saying maybe, again, open up a lot more roster spots. But again, that just that devalues your product that you're putting out there. These guys wouldn't see the field unless there was a COVID outbreak. You know, how do you train them? How do you pay them? How do you keep them involved where there's a chance that they might sit on the bench or be sitting in the stands? I don't think there's a right answer for it. We definitely haven't come up with a solution for it yet to continue to come up with a good product, especially with the NFL. You can only postpone maybe a day or two. You can't, I mean, they're on a, you know, it's not like the EPL where there's so many games and it's over so many months, or like the NBA or the NHL. Football is tough, man. I mean, these guys are going to be on a short week. It's just tough. I don't really have an answer for it.
Yeah, I think that you're hitting on the key of the question, which is, you know, in the NFL, the NBA, even in the Premier League where it's being played over, you have the ability to reschedule regular games. But when we get to a semifinal, quarterfinal, final of a tournament, there's sponsors involved. There's dates, there's stadiums that have been booked. You may not have venues, travel, things like that for a one-off game of that sort that may not be able to be as easily rescheduled. And I think after 2 years, you know, 18 months, 2 years of dealing with this, and it very much looking like this is a situation that may continue even a little bit beyond this, Stead. Isn't it time that in somebody's back room, we really start to think about what this is and articulate a plan for what we're going to do so that everybody knows what the expectations are if this happens in these situations?
Yeah, but you know,
Can I finish with one more thing real quick?
Yeah.
If you don't mind. I just think whenever you were just saying when it comes to playoffs, I think that because of the sponsors, because of the venues, because of the tickets, because of everything that's put into place, I think that games have to be played. And unfortunately, and rightfully so, there's going to be a lot of asterisks next to the next couple champions, you know, and it's a shame. But playoffs, I think there's just because of scheduling, and really what it comes down to is the money. You know, the sponsors and everything like that, it's going to be tough for them to reschedule. I don't see how they can. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. I would have alluded to that too. And you're right, because could you imagine if we get to the Champions League final, and just because I can see Byron Robb down in the bottom of my screen, so I know he's there. You get Bayern and PSG, but Bayern has a COVID outbreak that wipes out 11 of their first team players. Do you postpone the game? Do you force it played, knowing that the product that you put out for your premier competition in UEFA isn't going to have the star power? What do you do if, even better, if it's in the World Cup next year in November in Qatar and you have an outbreak, and in that situation, they're only traveling with 23 players. And you get to a semifinal. All right, do what you can, show up.
Well, but see, I think we're working on the assumption that the current situation is not going to continue to evolve. I mean, we have to remember a year ago, this was a much more deadly virus, and it's constantly changing, and things are becoming more treatable in certain ways. And you have vaccines and you have various medications that seem to be more effective in treating this. So that is going to continue to evolve. But we saw in the NFL where they said they weren't going to postpone any games, and the moment there was an outbreak, they postponed games. So the goalpost is going to continue to move, I'd say. And I think the product that they put out is actually very important. It's very important. And we have to remember these are all businesses, and fairness is one thing, but we want to make sure that what we're seeing is worth the price of admission. So I think even if a decision is made that says this is the protocol we're going to follow, we don't forget the World Cup is in a year, and we already see how much different things are this year as opposed to last year at this time. So it's going to move. It's going to continue to evolve. And I actually think that these sports organizations are wise to not say we're going to do X or we're going to Y. They need to go, we are going to assess as it comes on our plate. That's when we assess and see what the best thing is to do moving forward. I mean, I can't say I'm for or against moving games. I think I see the reasons why they should. I see the reasons why they shouldn't. And sadly, someone's going to get left out in the cold. But we also see that just from a ref making a bad call during a game. So it's one of those situations where there's no real right way to do it. It's just going to be something that has to get done as the situation presents itself. And sadly, someone's going to get bit in the ass, and it's hopefully not the team that you support. But if it's PSG versus Bayern, move the game. Anything for Bayern, anything for PSG to lose, I'm happy.
I think it comes down to the teams and the way they prepare for it too. We're kind of seeing that the preparation where, like you said, a bad call from a referee can change a game just like that. Or we all kind of can agree that there's an amount of luck that comes in a team going the distance and winning a championship. It's injuries, it's health, it's the way the other teams fall. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it that this might just be another added intangible there that a team has to get through.
I think you're really hitting a point there. We talked after the return in 2020 about how the Premier League shut down right before Manchester United was supposed to play Spurs. And I use this as an example because it was the best one that I have off the top of my head. At the time, Spurs were without Harry Kane. They were out without him being Song. They were looking really desperate. And that 3 months gave them time to heal. So it was a much different game than had it been played at the moment that it was supposed to be played. Look at how Sheffield United were playing in January, February, March of 2020 versus how they came back and played in June, July after the break. It's something that I think now that we're going to have to, at least in the short term, instead, I agree with you wholeheartedly that as we get better able to treat this as it evolves, it will become less and less of a thing. But if this season and the postponements around right now have proven anything to us, that at least in the short term, for the remainder of this year, as long as COVID keeps throwing off new chapters and indoctrinating probates, we're going to have to continue to deal with this, especially when we look at the fact that we had the same exact problem or a very similar problem. It may not be exactly the same. It may not be as widespread because of vaccines and things like that. We had a very similar problem. And remember, the requirements to be able to play in a Premier League game are a little bit different than they are for you and I to just exist in society. That being said, London Sean, I know what the requirements are for most of the professional sports over here. You heard Stead and I and Larry talk about the fact that, you know, if you are a vaccinated player on an NFL team, you come into contact or you test positive in your regular COVID test, you have to pass 2 negative COVID tests within 48 hours to be cleared, right? If you're an unvaccinated player, it's a mandatory 10-day quarantine. I know that. What I don't know, and despite all of my looking, is what the protocols are for the EPL. The question is, first, does anybody over there know? If you do know, what are they? And why haven't they?
I don't know. I haven't looked on the FA website. I don't think there are any. The protocols are very unclear. So there's been lots of debate on the radio today around the fact that should we force the clubs to declare how many people have COVID? So we've had a lot of games called off, but none of us. It's never been announced how many players were out for each team. Mm-hmm. So some teams might have only had 5 players with COVID. Others might have had 8 or 9. Others may have had 6 and half the members of staff with COVID. So I think it would be better if they were clearer with when do they how many players have to have COVID for a game to be called off. As yet, we don't know. So I'm not suggesting there's any shenanigans going on within the clubs, but it's at the moment it seems a pretty easy way to get your fixture cancelled if your star centre forward or star goalkeeper is a bit injured. Oh, hang on, we've got a couple more COVID cases at the back there. Better call the game off. So I think what might come out of the meeting that was had today, not only confirmation of the fact that the fixture list was going to go ahead, no confirmation about whether fans are let in, but let's assume they are being let in at the minute. But in order to make this a level playing field, they should also be declaring A, the number of players that have COVID, the number of staff that have COVID, and B, define a number by which that means that you can cancel your fixture. And then everyone knows that everyone's playing to the same rules.
I don't know what to make of that. The fact that after all of this time, there isn't a clear guidance. Like at least UEFA said, if you have 13 first-team players available, including a goalkeeper, you go out and play.
I haven't heard anything to that effect with the Premier League.
I don't know whether to say that's complete and utter total mismanagement or that is just a difference in between sports in the US and sports in the FA.
Well, the one thing I can tell you, because this was made clear, the television contract was re-signed here, I think, last year. Mm-hmm. You can bet your bottom dollar that has now got COVID clauses right the way through it. So that if certain games aren't broadcast, the penalties will be quite high and severe. That's my guess. I've not seen the contract myself, but they've been bloody stupid to get caught out twice, which is why there was all the wrangles last year when COVID happened. And they came to a compromise, I think, with the TV money. It was less than it was going to be. But if these games aren't televised, I mean, it's ironic that the games they were talking about leaving out were the ones on the 28th. So there was talk about playing on Boxing Day, but not have that round of games on the 28th. That's the day that Amazon have bought the package over here. So isn't that surprising now that the Amazon fixtures have survived over Christmas? He's not stupid, Mr. Bezos. He does it all on the 28th. Few days after Christmas. Nice way of pushing.
You just dropped a nugget on us that we were not aware of. I did not know that Amazon had brought a package. So is that saying that Amazon is intending on streaming those games? Because Amazon doesn't broadcast over terrestrial TV.
No, it's streaming all of the games. So you can pick and choose any one of the 10 games that's getting played. So
That's new.
Not new this year. They did it last year as well. So I think it was new last year.
But that's a newer fixture. That's a newer thing for y'all because it's something that we are quite used to over here. That is how that's how NBC has set up for a very long time. That they broadcast a couple of games on terrestrial TV. So typically what would be your lunchtime and your tea time fixtures over there. So the 12:30 and the 17:30, the 12:30 and or 12:45 and 17:30 fixtures are almost always broadcast, and there may be 2 1,500 games, but the rest are streamed and behind the paywall. But we've always said, and that's the reason why Stead and I have always said, like, we actually have the ability to watch more Premier League matches over here than y'all do over there.
Yeah, you've bought all 381 games.
Yeah, but I did not know that Amazon had bought around the fixtures on the 28th specifically. To now, do they just get the day of the 28th, or do they get that entire round? Which would
they get that round. So the games will start. So they had it last week as well. So Amazon missed out because they should have had all the games on the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whenever those games were split. But I don't think all of those were played, were they?
No, because Man United didn't play Brighton's.
There we go.
So we know that. All right.
So when that game's replayed, it will be replayed and televised on Amazon.
So we're going to welcome in the dog and Coach G.
Yeah, it always seems like I'm a second bystander in my own show, part of the own show here. So it's either my girlfriend or the dog. So whatever, man, it is what it is. So I know I'm a little early. I just thought I'd kind of listen in to you guys, kind of hear what's going on. So that's about it.
We were just talking about the Premier League and what they should do about COVID, how they should handle it. I should say I love the Gale Sayers jersey that you got in the background. I have one of my own, and if I could find it amongst all of this stuff, I would bring that out for you. You go ahead, rock the Gale Sayers. I'm gonna go with my Eagles jerseys, just because I'm having to go with Stead right now, because the Eagles played the Washington Team of Football, also known as the WTF, tomorrow. Right. Yeah. The W. So
yeah, it's funny when I wear the Sayers uniform around and stuff like that. It's only the old timers just bust out a conversation with me, and I love to hear their stories about when they were a kid watching Gale Sayers and the Brian Piccolo song and stuff like that. So it's always cool to see. I walk around and see. Hopefully, some of the youngsters will kind of see. They have no idea who this guy is. So my hope that the youngsters today will kind of look at the history, me being a history teacher, of anything they're passionate about in football, because just like with rap and anything else, Gale Sayers led the way for Walter Payton.
Yeah, you're talking to the guy who has the Ron Jaworski jersey hanging right behind him.
I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah, well, he's a nice guy. I've met him a couple of times. I can tell you some great stories about Ron. Really sappy movie, London Sean, but it's a classic over here in the United States. Brian's song, the history of Brian Piccolo and Gale Sayers, who back in the, 60s? Gale Sayers was a black running back for the Chicago Bears. Brian Piccolo was a white fullback. During training camp, they were forced to room together, and they became best friends. And then Brian Piccolo later died of leukemia. And Gale Sayers went on to become one of the best running backs in NFL history. Probably would have been by far the best had it not been for injuries. I mean, he was severely limited. But Hall of Famer, one of the greatest of all time, underrated if you ask me. My Gale Sayers jersey is so old it's actually long sleeve.
That's awesome, though. I love the old school, and I try to get a throwback old school, but they're not the same as the true original ones. But yeah, I think they're the 3/4 sleeves that go kind of like right up to the forearm. But yeah, man, nothing but beats Gale Sayers. And like you just said, he was probably one of the best running backs of all times, and definitely his career was cut short. But he was like lightning, and I guess you want to say, Brian Piccolo was thunder. And that's why it became a huge running back combo. But yeah. Gale Sayers is still one of my favorite running backs of all time. Love watching the old films. You have the Jim Brown, but Gale Sayers, what he did for the Bears and how fast he was, and like no one could catch up with him, and it's just unbelievable. But yeah, it was sad to see his career to end short. But it's all right now. I think the Bears are getting their butts kicked by the old Skull Vikings. If I'm not mistaken, it was 10-0 the last time I saw. So little shout out to Gale Sayers and Chicago Bears, my hometown. But also we talk about Italy and stuff like that, my true blood. So besides wine.
All right. So, Stead, we're behind schedule. We're supposed to talk about League One and La Liga and Serie A. All right. And we've got Byron Robb waiting in the wings at some point. I got to bring him on. So, let's catch up. League mid-table. They have a league. Yeah, they're playing games. PSG is winning.
Up by 13 points, and they are going to continue to win. I think the bigger story is the fact that there's some level of turmoil going on with the squad as far as Sergio Ramos' injury history is concerned. But I think the big story coming out of Ligue 1 this year is the issues of fan violence and hooliganism. That is quite the problem right now in Ligue 1. You've already had Lille and Nice being docked 1 point, and Nice is also on probation. If they get docked, if they have an issue again, they'll be docked 2 points. And it's blatantly obvious that the race in Ligue 1 is for second place. There's quite a jam between second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. But it's basically, and one thing I have noticed is that all the teams that seem to have fan violence, they always seem to be playing against Marseille. So if anything, if you want to tune into a Ligue 1 game that might have some fireworks, tune into a game that Marseille is playing because they seem to antagonize the other team's fans pretty good. But outside of that, it is another year of PSG basically saying we're going to do everything we can to win Champions League. Sadly is with the issues that are surrounding that team and seeing as how they're going to lose Mbappe this summer, this is it for PSG for a while. I think if they don't win Champions League this year, Mbappe's gone, and then you're going to have you have a 35, 36-year-old Messi who's not scoring any goals now. It's going to be quite the problem. So, and also Ligue 1 has been bumped below Portugal in the UEFA coefficient. They're out of the big five. So there's not really much positive things to see right now, which is sad because I've actually been to a Ligue 1 game. They're actually very exciting, but it's not something that is really very positive right now.
Ligue 1 is very fun to talk about when you're talking to French people about it. But when you look at what it is, it probably should be more than what it is, but it's not.
Yeah, it should be. It should be, but sadly it's not. And it should be. It should be,
it could be, but it's just not.
But when I was in Paris, granted, this was well over 10 years ago. I also had an easier time watching Premier League games than I did watching Ligue 1 games in France. So let's just say that I don't know how much television support they're getting either.
10 years ago, PSG hadn't been bought quite yet, or wasn't.
Oh no, their best player was Pauleta, who was Portuguese, and but even then, but I was in Strasbourg, and they were always, they were a team in Ligue 2 and Ligue 1, so they were back and forth as well. So, that's Ligue 1 in a nutshell. Hopefully, I believe Metz, that's what they're called. They gave up a 65-meter goal earlier this year where goalkeeper was out of position, kicked right over his head. It was pretty funny. But
Metz, for geographic reference, is right on the German-French border.
Yes.
It's very close to Germany. The reason why I know this is if you catch the Eurotrain from Germany to France, it's the first stop in France. So that's where they come around and check all your passports. And at the time that I was taking the train from Kaiserslautern to Nice, I was traveling without a passport. All I had was a military ID card. And I don't speak French. So it's very... Hey, look, I am back here and I am fine, and I made it to Nice and back to Germany. So the only thing I can tell you was yelling loud enough, "I'm an American soldier," worked.
It should continue to work in France for
yeah.
You think it worked? They probably had no idea what you were saying.
Yeah, but let's put a bow on League on. Let's
The only thing I was going to say is how much longer should
Sted, you didn't mention Marseille is second.
Yeah, Marseille is second. Yeah,
playing Matteo Guendouzi in central midfield for most of their games.
Understood.
With Saliba.
Well, what I was going to say too is that Saliba also made the team of made the best 11. But you know, from an Arsenal fan perspective, it's probably like, yeah, that's probably where he's going to stay. Because even though that being said, I can't say I'd want him to come in and take the spot from Ben White or Gabriel. So. But
he's being reintegrated into the squad next season.
Yeah, that's the plan. That's the plan. That's the plan. But we'll see. We'll see.
And we should get 12 million for Guendouzi.
Yeah.
And who's doing Italy?
G is doing Italy.
Well, let me just say this about Guendouzi. No,
Remind me to talk about Fiorentina, G.
Yeah, but Guendouzi is also doing this.
List.
Hold on a sec. Guendouzi and Saliba, though, are doing this in the 6th best league in Europe. So I'm just gonna leave it at that.
You know, and these might be the players that should do well at those leagues, and Arsenal might be like, "Yep, we're good. Like, keep them, sell them." They're, you know, yeah. If it's the 6th best league and they're, you know, number 2 right now, we don't need them. I like what we have. Don't bring back the cancer.
My bigger question was you talked about PSG losing Mbappe, the fiasco with Sergio Ramos, Lionel Messi not scoring goals in the league. He has scored in the Champions League, but he's definitely not scoring in Ligue 1.
But he doesn't have to. That's the thing.
He doesn't have to. But at what point in time do the ownership of PSG start to look at Leonardo and say, hey?
When they get knocked out of Champions League, that's when they're going to do it. When they get knocked out, because they went whole hog, because they could have sold Mbappe this year. They could have, and they didn't. They went all in on winning Champions League this year. They basically said, we know we're losing 200 billion euros, but you know, money is nothing to those owners. So they're saying, we're just going to go all in, and we're putting all of our eggs in this basket. We want to win Champions League, and they think they can do it with the Neymar, Messi, and Mbappe front line. And you know, with all intents and purposes, they should be able to do it. But granted, I think outside of Bayern Munich and Manchester City, and I say outside of Bayern Munich and the England teams, I don't see it's a team better, but it's PSG. They're going to figure out a way to screw this up. They always do. And so I just, my faith in them winning is not very good.
They're going to lose in the next round.
I think they are. I think they lose around 16. I think it was Real Madrid. I do. I think they get knocked out by Real Madrid. You're going to see Vinicius Jr. have a monster 2 games. He's going to score 3 goals, and they're going to knock him out.
So thank you for bringing up Real Madrid, because that now I can knock out La Liga real quick, where there are basically 3 stories that we can talk about at the midway point. Real Madrid are starting to run away with this, and I wonder, like, are they really as good, or is just everybody that bad? Because you have the disintegration of Barca, which we have talked about, and they barely got by Real Betis this weekend. And then even a little bit more surprising, instead, Larry G and now Byron Rob, is the fact that Atleti just hasn't been able to do much of anything. So I'm going to start with this one. Has the Diego Simeone effect finally worn off at the Atleti? Because we look at them and they're just really starting to underperform. You bought Luis Suarez, you bought Joao Felix.
Gotta go. He's got to go.
You bought them in to score goals, but they built this whole thing on. I forgot about Antoine Griezmann. Thank you, Rob. You brought all these guys in, and you sometimes you're not scoring goals, sometimes you can't defend. Like, what's the deal? Like, we've all seen it in other sports, and since Sean is gone, we can all make American sports comparisons now, where great coaches, Andy Reid, Tony Dungy, Mike Tomlin to a certain extent, have their time, and just after a while, no matter how good they are, their message just gets stale and it just doesn't work anymore. Stead, you said it first. Is it time for Diego Simeone to just find greener pastures? He built the Wanda Metropolitano. He got them to 2 Champions League finals. He's won a couple of league titles with them. Is it time for him to just walk off, declare victory, and say, I have accomplished everything that I possibly can here, and go on before the aura around him suffers anymore?
I think only if he can take a position at a more prestigious club. That's it. Outside of that, I think, look, him and Luis Suarez, Suarez is beefing with him. He's yelling at him on the sidelines and stuff like that. And at least that's what the reports are saying. And it appears to me that if I was Simeone, I'm like, look, dude, you're almost 35. And, you're coming to the tail end of your career. You're still a very effective player. And we love to have you. But this type of behavior is completely unsatisfactory. And if anybody has kind of earned the right to have a down year, it's Diego Simeone. And I think the team should basically say, look, dude, whatever you want to do, we're behind you, because you have made us a legit threat to win not only La Liga, but their domestic cups. And even if they haven't, as you said, they've been to 2 finals in Champions League. And there's a reason to believe they could win Europa League if they ever get sent over there. So I think that Atleti it'd be very unwise for them to do anything that would cause them to move him on without it coming from him. And if he chooses to remain in football without an offer from a bigger club, I just don't, and that club can't be Barcelona. He doesn't want to go there.
Diego Simeone could have beef with a potato.
Yeah.
If that potato
okay.
looked at him wrong.
Sounds like a good
That's
dinner
all
to
right.
me.
That's what I'm about to say. That's all right. That's all right. I mean, and you're also talking to, listen, on the right side of my screen, you have the Arsenal contingency, and we've all seen the issues that when a big coach leaves, what that does to your team. So I am not one to say the coach needs to go. I'm going to say, like, no, let's look at the players, because players come and go very, very quickly. And when you have players who have started to age out of their effectiveness, it's not a bad idea to say, hey, this was great. We won a league title together. Let us know where you want to go. We'll help you pack.
Yeah, and I think he's proven to himself, even if they have a down year, it's just a down year. He brought millions and millions of dollars into that club and brought them up to the next level. He kind of can ride on for a while here until they kind of go back to the next cycle. Until that next cycle happens, until after that next cycle, after it, I think from right there, they need to kind of reevaluate. But right now, he has every single means just to be where he's at without being moved.
All right. Larry, simply because you may face them at some point in time, how good is Real Madrid? And do you think they're even as good as their record in La Liga would indicate?
La Liga's a down year. I think they're an excellent team. And I think we're really going to kind of see how they handle PSG in the next round. I do think they will handle them well and advance. But I think this is kind of their first real test to see what kind of team they are. You can't base on what they're doing on just because of how the La Liga is this year. Vinicius Jr. is just, he's coming into his own. He's becoming the player that we all thought he would be. And they've unloaded some pieces that, with Ramos gone, that, just the injuries, it's just a presence there that they're starting to rebuild. And I don't think they're going to win the Champions League this year. I don't think they're that good, but I think that they are. It wasn't much of a dip for them, but I think they're going to be coming back strong in the next couple of years.
Rob, how good is Real Madrid?
You know what? I think they're good, but they're not great. I think Vinicius Jr. has definitely helped a lot. The consistency of Karim Benzema has been, it's been workmanlike, man, lunch pail-esque, for us Americans here who are obsessed with blue collar workers. Just continues scoring goals. And it's Carlo Ancelotti. He has a thing about this club. I know, he didn't leave on the greatest terms the last time, but he did win a Champions League the last time he was over at Real. So there's nothing preventing them from really making a push. I think they beat PSG easily in Champions League, and they really don't have competition over in La Liga. I mean, the problem with Atletico Madrid is that they don't play defense anymore. At least not like how we know them to play defense. I mean, they score some goals, but they're just letting in too many goals, and it's very unlike them. And so I don't think the problem is Simeone. I think this is just an off year for them to challenge. And I think Real Madrid just has too many good pieces, especially they got David Alaba there as in the back there as playing center back. So Simeone, I think he stays. He can do whatever he wants for the most part. I mean, he's done so much for that club, and so I think, like, we doubted him before. There was like a few years back that he looked like the luster was off, and then he won the league. He beat Liverpool in Anfield, I believe. Right before the COVID pandemic really got started in Europe. So we doubt him, and then he just comes back to shine again. So look, I don't think his story is over at Atletico. He's going to go on his terms. He will not be sacked at all. But I don't think they have any hope of catching Real Madrid. I think they're too far up and they're too consistent, and it's their league to lose for the most part, which I don't think they will.
All right, so we're going to end our discussion with about La Liga with this. Before we move on to Serie A with G and then Bundesliga with Rob. I have a challenge for y'all 5 outside of me. I want you to summarize the situation at Barcelona with a movie title.
Thinking of the Titanic.
I figured somebody was going to go with Titanic. So Sean is going with Titanic. I was going with Poseidon Adventure.
Oh, yeah.
Stead, you got something?
I don't remember the last time I even watched a movie. So let me come back to me.
Gee, how about you?
My first thought was whatever the Katafe's video was that they brought up on 10 years ago, whatever the name of that was. That was, they need a little revival. So,
Rob, what you got?
Trading Places, because it looks like Barcelona are run by Mortimers. They lost all their money in the market, in the transfer market, and they have nothing to show for it. So yes, Trading Places is my movie title.
Larry, what you got?
Wasn't there that movie Towering Inferno?
I was waiting for somebody to come up with Towering Inferno. I purposely left Towering Inferno and went with Poseidon Adventure because I figured somebody would blurt out Titanic and Poseidon Adventure was and left Towering Inferno. All right, so we've got Titanic, Towering Inferno, Poseidon Adventure, Trading Places, Hatafe's porn movie, which has absolutely nothing to do with this.
It does actually. They're rising up right now in the standings.
It has nothing to do with anything that's going on right now.
I know, but you said you want to talk about Liga One, so that's what, or La Liga. So I had to throw Getafe in there.
Anytime G has a chance to mention this damn movie,
they're rising up.
Yes, rising up. There actually is a name for that movie.
I'll find it. I'll find it.
You will. You probably have it downloaded by now.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna go with
who's our Spanish expert today?
We don't have one.
We don't have one. So can someone explain to me, fair play rules and all that bullshit? How the hell are Real Madrid going to buy Haaland and Mbappe? Can someone explain that?
Well, Mbappe's on a free. They don't have to pay a dime for Mbappe.
But
his contract
they don't
is
have
out
to
of PSG.
pay a transfer fee, but he wants like $500,000 a week, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but I'm saying, but at least they don't have to pay the. They were ready to drop 200.
No, they'll
million.
pay him the transfer fee because he can decide where the hell he wants to go. And part of his negotiation is to be, I would have cost you 100 million. How about giving me 20? And he'll get his 20 mil.
Sean,
Yeah.
I will tell you this, and I said this for a long time. Don't ever look too deeply into the finances of Real Madrid. All right?
Okay.
Don't ever do it. All right, Stead, your movie before we move on to G and we start talking about the mess.
It's a movie with Martin Lawrence and Danny DeVito called "What's the Worst That Could Happen." That's
What's
my
the
movie.
word? Oh, that movie actually didn't have an awful soundtrack. There were a couple of songs off of that
Yeah.
soundtrack that weren't bad. All right,
Yeah.
G.
I got a list. How about Freddie Gets Fingered? Freddie Got Fingered? Is that one of them? Is that no? It's on the worst titles. I'm just looking up. Hey, it's Google.
Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah.
Oh,
Maybe.
I'll tell you another one they could do. The New Camp Has Fallen. You know, a bit like after Olympus has fallen and London has fallen, the New Camp Has Fallen. Go in and shoot the place down. Fantastic.
Not so gone in
Love it.
60 seconds.
Yeah. that's a
Gone in
good one.
60 seconds. Yeah.
All right, G. Talk to us about Serie A. First and foremost,
We got a runaway.
you got to run away.
Yeah.
Inter's title defense, despite the absence of Romelu Lukaku, hasn't missed a beat. But how much of that is due to the fact that the teams around them just didn't get better?
And also the defense is shutting everyone down. Let me look at my notes real quick. Plus 33 in goals, and they're not even halfway through the season. That's phenomenal. Obviously, you need to score one more, but they're winning almost every single thing. Their defense is, I can't even pronounce this guy's name, Skriniar.
Skriniar. Yeah.
Skriniar. He is the constant center defender right now. I'm looking at all the stats. They love a 3-5-2, and what they do with their mid-5, the 3 on top, they might go over the 2 and the 1, or they might reverse it, and that's who they're playing. With that, they're getting help throughout the middle. Let me look at some of my names here. We got Vidal, we got Ian Perisic. I hate to throw him name out there, but when he comes off the bench, Sanchez is a kind of a revival little spark plug in there, and throwing some even Smalling. Smalling's not that bad either on Inter, so throw some of these kind of EPL names out there. With Martinez, Zetko, I can't pronounce this guy's name, Canalugo, he's a Hakan. But a lot of these gentlemen who are filling up right in the middle is really shutting down all of the offensive or opposite team's offense advancement. So when you're not having an offense coming down at you, and if they do, your defense is shutting them down, they're just going to run away with the league. They're plus 33 right now. They're 6 points ahead right now of Napoli.
Oh, and G just froze.
The New Orleans Freeze strikes again.
Yes. Instead, Inter's running away with it. I think one of the bigger stories, though, that we haven't talked enough about on this show is the fact that, like, what is going on?
Lukaku.
He's back. Didn't miss a beat.
Wow.
G.
You froze again, G.
You froze again. What is going on with Juventus right now?
I am the closest to my Wi-Fi as friggin' possible. I have no idea why I'm being shut out.
That's because the entire network in New Orleans, as was proven by the hurricane, is basically held together with spit duct tape, a dead mouse, and a guy named Fred.
And don't forget about the hurricanes. But yes,
Basically,
the
you
drinks.
remember back in the old day
Ooh, crawfish. Yes.
when you had the when you went over to grandma's house and she had the antenna, and you used to have to put like one foot up on the TV
don't
and
move.
hold the head, don't move, hold the head, so that she could watch her soap operas.
No,
And
she
you always
watches
invited the
stories.
youngest kid in there because the youngest kid always got stuck with that.
But she's
So you
watching
invite
her
your-
stories.
She's
She's watching
watching
her
her
stories.
stories.
Yes.
All right, you had to sit there like that for an hour while she watched her stories. That's the whole entire internet system in New Orleans. So we understand why you cut out.
All right, so my bad. So Juve. So you asked me a question about Ronaldo. How I feel about Ronaldo is they just gave it all the money. They put all of the eggs in one basket. Had some decent people around him, but once he's gone, you see what they're going through right now. They're tied for 5th in the league. They're not the Juve from before. And I'm sorry, when you got Chesney as your goalie, as your main goalie, I always thought that he was a decent, okay kind of goalie. But if he's your number one guy, I'm sorry. At a club level, with that name, you got to have at least a top 5 goalies in the world. But when you have companies like Bonucci and Cellini, I hate to say it out there. I wish we would have Aaron Ramsey, but Aaron Ramsey's playing in the middle as well. But you're having some of these names that are just older. So when you have oldness plus injury, they're not going to be the same team as we've seen over the years. Dybala, he's hurt. Quadrado, he's an old name from the EPL that played on Chelsea. They're really relying on him, and he's decent. He's got good spurts, games here and there. But Juve is not the Juve from before, and especially with McKennie, McKennie's not going to be your savior, but yet they're putting a lot of pressure on this young American too. No one's Ronaldo, but when you put all the eggs in one basket, and just like what PSG is doing, you try to get the superstar on your team to win every single tournament under the stars. Juve just came up short, and with Ronaldo and dumping all the money, they don't really have a lot left to fill their bench for players that come off the field. So we see with Arsenal that when you have your squad coming off the bench who is not really going to let go, the play is going to be at the very high level. But with Juve, there's no one really spectacular who's coming off the bench. Their play is going to drop. So they're tying teams who are in 18th place, 17th place. It's not the Juve from old. So they're definitely going to need a huge shakeup right now. But what's going on with Juve, I'm not liking it. So I'll give it about 2 years, I would say.
All right. So the last question for you on Serie A is, give us one storyline at the midpoint of the season as they go into their winter break. Give us the most surprising storyline, the one that intrigued you the most.
And actually, I love to say it because he was thinking what I was thinking with Sean, is Florentino. Right now, they are tied for 5th place. I believe, let me look at their record. They are 10-1-7. If some of those 7 losses, if they even say 3 of those losses became the ties, they're in very solid position to go after Atalante for 4th place right now. And I didn't see his name until Sean said, I want to talk about a former, or I would say a current Arsenal player, Torreira over there in the midfield, little short, 5'2", 5'4". I know he's real small, but he's having a decent year over there. But again, maybe some of these players that we think on Arsenal will play for us and do well, maybe they just don't. But when we kind of load them out and they find their team with their system and their coach where they can just kind of bloom. And here's another situation where Torreira is actually doing very well on Fiorentina. So he's helping a kind of resurgence of the purple and white. And every time I think about Fiorentina, I think about the old 1980s, 1990s, big purple machine destroying people left and right. So it's kind of good to see Fiorentina coming back. But again, it's just one of those seasons that they're going to have an up year and see what happens next year. But it's definitely a huge surprise. Tied with Roma and tied with Juve. So Jose Mourinho's Roma is okay this year. So we'll see what happens.
Don't count Torreira out at Arsenal either. He's only 25, and he's had some very solid performances for Arsenal. And I think he could be a defensive midfielder that could really help the squad. So I'm gonna hold a candle out for good old Torreira. I like him.
Or he can be yours for 25 million quid.
Right. And one name that's going to be on kind of unsung hero right now is Tammy Abraham. Right now, he's throwing up 11 goals, and we're talking about Chelsea, and I forgot the other kid who plays, I think, West Ham or Villa, who the little white guy who is I forgot his name, who is the next big forward right now who plays in the EPL. Abraham is he's out there right now, scoring left and right for
Roma.
For Roma. What is that to say that he's still producing? He's a young, fast kid who's got a lot of energy. Now he's got a little chip on his shoulder. I feel like he's pissed off that he got switched over to Roma. He thought he was the next big line as a forward in Chelsea, and I feel like he's got a huge chip. So watch out for him coming back in the EPL next year or two and having some major hurt on us.
Sean, I'm going to give it to you in a second to talk about Fiorentina, and then we're going to go to Rob to talk about the Bundesliga. But I will say about this, how many times have we seen forwards and players go from the Premier League to Serie A and have a career renaissance just because the pace of the game is so much slower in Italy? It's not necessarily as physical. The pace of the game is slower, and they're able to enjoy just kind of a career renaissance. We saw that with Dzeko. We saw that with Romelu Lukaku most recently, and now we're seeing it with Tammy Abraham. Hopefully it worked for him. and he's able to come back maybe and go use this as a springboard to develop and stuff like that. But I don't think just because all of a sudden you go from the Premier League to La Liga and you have a great season, look at where you're going from and to. Sean, I know you wanted to talk about Fiorentina real quick, and then we're going to go to Rob with Bundesliga before we get to Celtic Cam and our favorite point in the show, the report from Beyond the Wall, the land of enchantment that is Scotland. Take it away, Sean.
I didn't really have much more to add than G had mentioned. I'm delighted that Torreira is doing very well. I have been watching Fiorentina because their centre forward has been linked with just about every club in Europe. So was quite interested to see, I think his name is Vlahovic.
Yes.
Maybe someone can help me out.
Yeah, I think he's either Serbian or Croatian.
He's Croatian, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Vlahovic or something like that. Dusan, I believe, is his
Dusan, that's him. Yeah.
Yes.
So he, I did manage to see him score quite a few goals, actually. So interesting. He looks like a sort of Olivier, a younger version of Olivier Giroud, with a similar physique. I think he's about 6'4", good-looking lad, dark hair, but he's got a ton more skill and a ton more speed than Giroud, which actually makes him quite dangerous. So look out for him. I think there'll be lots of big clubs putting bids in for him whilst the Haaland auction goes on the other side as well. So that was all I wanted to say, really.
Go keep an eye on him, definitely.
Yeah.
Anytime you get a 6'4" center forward that can move, that's always a good thing. That was probably
And
one
score.
thing about
And
and
score.
score.
And
Absolutely.
score, yeah.
Absolutely.
And he's a left footer too. And as a goalie, it's for whatever reason, it's always harder to judge a left foot shot.
Yeah,
We're
the
so
ball
used to
spins
right.
like
So
this.
yeah, this 6'2" serves to be a ginormous effect wherever he goes.
All right, we are switching over to yet another land. Bayern Rob, let us know how quickly Bayern will win the Bundesliga this year.
Probably by late March, early
Yeah.
April.
But as you always do, you always come correct with the additional storylines, what we really should be paying attention to there. So Rob, hook us up. What's going on with the midway point over the Bundesliga?
So there's 2 points. Number one, I'll go with the negative first, is Dortmund. They've dropped, a point unnecessarily. They're now back 9 points in the league, which is at this point with Bayern just getting all their players back by the start of the second half of the season. It's going to be almost insurmountable to overcome. The problem is that Dortmund, they actually were winning a bit when Haaland was out, and then Haaland became a little bit invincible, especially last week versus Hertha Berlin. They lost 3-2, and he was nowhere to be found. And Haaland tends to have these games where if he's frustrated and he doesn't get service, then he's useless for the last 20 minutes of his shift. So, and it's not fun. And also, like, the defeatist attitude that Dortmund have, like their CEO Watzke pretty much said, and I quote, "The way they're playing," he's talking about Bayern here, "the way they're playing, you can't get near them. With an $80 million euro difference in wage bills, you can of course sign 10 more world-class players. They have the most money and they're doing well with it." See, the problem is that they have a higher wage, they had the second highest wage bill, and then losing to Hertha Berlin. So they're just screaming poverty. And while they're sitting on their Sancho money, and I don't know what they're doing with their Sancho money, they better start re-upping Jude Bellingham so he doesn't leave for free or anything. So it's just that defeatist mentality that Dortmund have. Like, they almost like lose the league from the second week. And when Jurgen Klopp was there, he never spoke like that at all. Ever since he left, Dortmund had just been a shell themselves. Every once in a while they'll get close and then they screw it up. Bayern will give them every opportunity in the world to win the league, and then Dortmund take no advantage of it. So once again, Dortmund had a shot. Now they blew it. Bayern are getting back into full strength, and now they're down 9 points, and it's pretty much the league is over for Dortmund. But the biggest story, the positive story, is Freiburg. Freiburg is in third, shockingly in third. They beat Leverkusen, who's a talented squad. They beat Leverkusen this past weekend, and it looks like they are for real. They don't give up many goals at all. I think they only gave up 16 goals this season so far. They don't score a lot. They have 3 players tied with 4 goals on their team. So they don't score much at if anything, and it's very spread out. But they are workmanlike as far as the defense goes. You really don't score goals on them at all. So I thought they would start to collapse a little bit, but no, it seems like they're gaining steam here. And if they have a good month in January, they can potentially solidify their third place spot and potentially challenge Dortmund if Dortmund start to screw up themselves. So that's really shocking, and I'm really happy for them. They have a new stadium as well, so it'll be nice for them to play Champions League in a new stadium next year, hopefully they make it at least European competition. And then the other one, which is good old Leipzig, who was second in the Bundesliga last season, who were in Champions League this season, did not make it out of the group stage in Champions League. They fired their manager Jesse Marsch like about a month ago or 2 weeks ago, and they have stumbled. They're all the way in 10th. They've only won 1 game out of their last 5. They're clueless. I don't know what they're doing. They have Dominic Tedesco, who's a former manager at Schalke. He got fired by Schalke, about a couple of seasons before their tumble down to the 2nd division. And Leipzig just have no options. I mean, they spent some money here. I know they sold some players, but they spent money. I think they spent the most money in the Bundesliga this past offseason. So they really have no excuses. And I don't know what they're going to do here. I mean, they're below Mainz, they're below Cologne, they're below Union Berlin, and so it's for that wage bill and the money they spent, they expect more. They expect European competition. They expect Champions League at this point, and they're intent. And it doesn't look positive for them. They need something to go right in this small winter break to really reshift the gears and get started again, because if they don't make Champions League or even European competition, there's going to be a lot of movement over at Leipzig. A lot of players will be leaving, and another manager will definitely be being called upon. So, and that's the league for the most part.
Do you expect any real hiccups in what we're seeing with the table over the next 10 games or so? Because you look at there is a little bit of a it's a little tight between 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, but it also seems like those are the clubs that have been, at least in recent history, been the ones that have been in those places. So do you see any type of shifting occurring, or the teams you see in the European qualification spots pretty much going to stay the same?
So the one shift I do see, which is very uncharacteristic of them, is Gladbach. Gladbach are all the way in 14th. They've lost 4 out of the last 5 matches, but they have their favorite opposition after the winter break in Bayern Munich, who they've spanked out of the DFB Pokal in the second round. So what better way to right the ship than playing against the team that you have full confidence in beating despite all their superstars. So Gladbach's definitely going to move up. I can't see them finishing in 14th or anywhere near there. They're just too good. The other thing I expect to see is a drop in form with Hoffenheim. I think Hoffenheim are really good, but I don't think they are that good. Especially if you get like the more traditional powered like Leipzig, and even potentially with Miracle Gladbach moving up. I think it's going to be at the expense of a club like Hoffenheim. They have a young manager. They have some really good players over there, There's an American and Chris Richards who plays most of the time. He starts most of the matches as well in center back position, sometimes in the back three. But despite all their talents, I just think they're not ready. I think the other teams just are much better, and you'll see a proper shifting later on. And the winter break does a lot of fun things to teams. Everybody has this momentum, and all of a sudden you're told you have to stop for 2 weeks. Normally it's 4 weeks, but this season is 2 weeks. So maybe you won't see as much shifting, but I think you're going to see some changes happen, especially over the Leipzig and the Gladbach area, Gladbach teams.
Rob, if Bayern Munich were in the Premier League, where do you think they'd finish?
First. I'm sorry, they're just so good. I mean, I think they're.
You think they finish first in the Premier League?
I think they finish first, but I definitely think the point differential will be like small, maybe 1 or 2 points. I think it'll be really close, especially if if they're playing City and Chelsea, twice, and also if they're in the Premier League, that means they're also playing all those cup competitions as well. So the EFL Cup and also the FA Cup. So that hinders them as well. So I think in their current squad, I think they would do excellent. I definitely top 2 or top 3. But if you're telling them they are in the Premier League, does that mean they get Premier League money? Then it's a different story.
Yeah, definitely.
So
yeah.
No, I think they're really good, and I think they're gonna do well in Champions League again. But that we say that now, right? But the competition doesn't start till February. A lot can happen in a month. We don't know who's going to get hurt. Who's going to be what form. The FC Hollywood, tabloids could start calling again, and do things to the team confidence. So, I have full confidence that they're going to do well in Champions League. But after Salzburg, I really don't know. I mean. They can get hot or they can stumble in the quarterfinals.
Rob, you brought it up real quick. Normally the winter break is about twice as long as it is this year. I mean, it gives teams, in the past, it's given team, I've seen it be almost as long as 6 weeks. In the past, it's given teams enough time to take off for the holidays and come over to Florida and play a couple of warm-up games before they get back to Bundesliga competition. This time, they're off this week and they'll be back on the 7th. How do you think the shorter winter break is going to affect the Bundesliga?
I think it's going to be a little bit tougher for some of the more established clubs like a Frankfurt, a Gladbach, and more recently a Leipzig, to really fix themselves. Because I think if they had the full weeks, I think they would be able to really change things up and see where the errors of their ways are, and make some positive moves. And also, but they are some of the richer clubs, I guess. Obviously Bayern and Dortmund had the most money, and Leipzig as well. But they'll be able to see where their weaknesses are. But with 2 weeks going, it's a really short period. Especially like a Leipzig, for example, right? Because they have a new manager, and he had to come in and just start like with what he had, right? And he didn't have much time to implement, his terminology, his systems, his rotation. And 2 weeks is somewhat helpful, but I guarantee you he wishes he had a proper 4 weeks, because if you have 4 weeks, then you can definitely have a 2-week training camp and drill into these players. And Leipzig have a roster full of really, really good players who have played under Nagelsmann. Nagelsmann is master tactician. And so they're used to high complex systems, right? And they're really intelligent players. But 2 weeks is not enough for Dominic Tedesco or any manager for really to switch things. So it's going to take a little bit longer for some of the proper reshifting that we typically see in the table. For all we know, it might not even happen either, right? The 2 weeks might have just been, You know, it's going to be a small break to get everybody healthy, and that's really it. You know, so it remains to be seen. I don't think it will be that much of an effect. I think you're going to see, it's going to take enough of like 3 to 4 weeks really to see what like a Leipzig, for example, does with their extra time, with their extra training, with their new manager.
All right, thanks a lot. We are going to shift our focus and go north of the border. Hey, Cam, how's it going?
Good. How are you guys doing?
First and foremost, where are we watching this game on January 2nd? Because we know that the Old Firm is coming up, and nothing says the day after Hogmanay like the Old Firm.
Oh yeah, no, we got to figure that out. I am well ready for that game. I think that's going to be arguably quite possibly the best game of the year in the Cinch Premiership. So I'm looking forward to that.
So we're going to switch up what we've been doing a little bit. At some point in time, each one of us adopted a Scottish Premier League team. I know I got Aberdeen. I know there's Hibs. Somebody had Motherwell. So G had Motherwell. He's cheering right now. Can you tell us a little bit about how our respective teams are doing? So, like I said, I know I've got Aberdeen. It hasn't been the easiest of goes for them, but hey, look, we're still hanging on. We still have a chance to get into the top 6 for the split.
Yeah, no, there's actually some really, really interesting games coming up that are really going to define the split. The first team that I would really want to focus in on is actually Hibs. Hibs recently let go their manager, Jack Ross. Funnily enough, a week before they played Celtic in the League Cup final, which is a bit questionable. But the person they've managed to pick up, I think, is going to be absolutely amazing. They picked up Sean Maloney, who has been the assistant manager to Roberto Martinez over in Belgium for 3 years now. This is his first head coaching position. But I will say he comes in to a very difficult situation. The next 5 to 6 games that they play are all teams in the top of the split. So they're not going to get a break until I think they play Livingston on January 29th. Up until then, they're going to have some really, really hard games. And I think, this is going to be a testing point for Maloney, but I think he's going to have a really hard time kind of getting his feet on the ground with these teams that they're playing. I mean, it's teams, Motherwell, Aberdeen's their next game. And then I think it's either Hearts or Motherwell. But I think they're going to have a really tough time there. Whereas, a team like Aberdeen, they play Hibs, they could take points from them. They're only a point differential there. That's 6th and 7th. So that's a big battleground for the split. So I think Aberdeen's looking to be in a good place. They then play some easier teams and, teams down near the bottom. And then, of course, we've got the battle at the top of the table, Celtic and Rangers, 7 points difference. We have a game in hand. That New Year's game is going to be the absolute, I think, defining factor for who ends up first. My hope is that Rangers slip. They drop points, whether a tie or loss, and then that puts us on really, really even footing going into that New Year's Day game.
Stead, who was your team?
Good old St. Mirren, who are toiling down in 9th. So yeah, I think I'll be digging deep into the bottom half of the split, and I'll give reports on how those useless games are going to be going for.
Yeah, St. Mirren's having a tough time right now. I can't remember the last time they won a game.
They haven't won a game. I believe their last 7, they've either drawn or lost. I believe that's what it is for St. Mirren. They've been struggling.
Yeah, they really have been.
Mightily.
All right. So, for our own edification and for those of us who are getting into the Scottish Premier League more because of your reports, when does the split occur?
So it occurs when we hit 33 games played. So we're sitting at most teams at 19, some at 18. So that's probably going to be, gosh, not the kind of math I want to be doing.
a couple of more weeks from now. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, it's going to be a few more months. Yeah, I'm not going to try to do this right now.
They got about 15 games left before.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They got about 15 games to decide
Yeah.
the split. Who else? I know
15, 14, depending on who has 18 or 19.
Who
teams, yeah.
who here, if anyone has St. Johnston?
I-
Oh, Sean, no, Sean.
Yeah, I had Toronto in the MLS and St Johnstone in the Scottish League. Come on, you bottom ones.
It's you, know, it's
You and
really-
Matt. You and Matt.
it's really sad because I really, after last season with St. Johnston, I had them, I had them at least upper middle of the table, like contending for a split. And
Yep.
they've won a single game this whole season, I think. I think they've won one game. And it's just they've won 3. Okay.
They've won
it-
3, yeah. Now, I have to follow them because their
Tape.
greatest historian, who's still living, is one of my best pals. So he wouldn't have forgiven me. Hi, Alistair. Sorry, bit of a shout.
Hey,
out to
you
Alistair.
have a
Yeah.
friend who is a historian of St. Johnston.
Correct.
Huh.
Can we wake him up early and get him on the pod to talk about this?
I will try. I will try. Bless him. He's he's getting on a bit. He won't mind me saying that. So these early morning things might be. Yeah. So he's written the book. His latest book on St. Johnstone is called Hagiography,
Oh, interesting. I'll have to look
which
that
is
up.
obviously the what is that? The science of looking at saints. So that's the pun that he's obviously used for
Got it.
the book. Yeah, he occasionally is brought on to do the live commentary for Radio St. Johnston or TV St. Johnston or whoever was putting out St. Johnston during COVID last year. So he's a top man, but he's suffering. He's suffering badly, as you can imagine.
I can understand. I mean, there wasn't much of a team shift. I actually don't know if they really made any trades last transfer window, and it's just
No, they haven't. No.
no.
They
I
haven't.
don't think they made anything, and it's just wild. A team that was successful as they were last season for their size, this season is just sinking.
Yeah, it's a shame, and they're very very keen on their manager. They reckon he's going to be a good one. Was this Callum? He used to be played for the Scotland team up until not that recently. Callum, who's the manager for St Mirren?
Let me look it up. I can picture him. I can.
Yeah. He used to play. I'm sure he played fullback for Scotland. Callum. Oh,
Callum Davidson.
Callum Davison. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, he's got a good career.
Yeah.
Cam, it's kind of gone different directions in Dundee. You have Dundee United, who are hanging in the top half of the table and moving up, whereas Dundee have started to slide down a lot closer to St. Johnstons than they are to Celtic and Rangers. What's going on in that city right now? Half the city's happy, half the city's got to be miserable.
Yeah, and they actually have their derby coming up not too long from now. I think 2 or 3 games from now they're going to be playing each other. But that's again I hate to say, but Dundee has never been one to hang in the top tier too long. They're what I like to call a revolving door team. They come in for a season, then they usually bounce out. Whereas Dundee,
West Brom.
huh?
Yeah.
So the West Brom of the Scottish
Or
Premier League.
Norwich.
Yeah, Norwich.
Or Norwich.
Newcastle, yeah. So I think for me it's always been an odd situation in a city like Dundee, a very small city, that they have these 2 teams playing at such a high level in Scottish football. They must have some of the smallest fan bases. I honestly would imagine that somewhere like St. Johnstone, St. Mirren have bigger fan bases just because they're really the only big team in those places. Whereas Dundee, I don't know if it's just, I honestly couldn't tell you what's going on with Dundee right now, but it's not, I'll put it this way, it's not an uncommon story to see them come back up and then to see them leave the next season. It's very common. I don't know if it's leadership. I don't know. It's just not having the funds, not having the top quality player, but it's not an unlikely story for Dundee, unfortunately.
Are the grounds still practically next door to each other?
Yeah, it's Dearman Stadium, and then I can't think of the other one.
Dens Park? isn't
Yeah,
it?
Dens Park. Yep, thank you. Yeah, they are very close.
So just you said there was the small city. I went to the Dundee United derby in about 1972.
Okay.
And what attracted me to go to that, because my aunt used to live only 10 miles away from Dundee, was Peter Bonetti was playing in goal for Dundee United. For those of you that are old enough, anyone know who Peter Bonetti is? No? Peter Bonetti was the man that went into goal after we lost Gordon Banks to injury in the 1970 World Cup. And he was dreadful, played for Chelsea for many years, but we haven't got Chelsea Mike here today, haven't we? Because he might have heard of it.
He may be on a little bit later.
Okay,
so.
well, ask him if he knows who Peter Bonetti is. Then. Anyway, the point being, there were 21,000 at that game that I went to. So there's got to be a few people who like football in Dundee.
Well, I'm not saying it's not, but I mean, you have a situation where it's not one team getting that money from a small city. It's two teams. So it's very divided.
True.
But there is a case to be made against that with one Dundee team slipping down and the other one hanging up there in the split, which is also unusual.
Bit like yeah.
It's a weird situation, and I need to look at it more because it is very. It's unusual. It's unusual. Usually the Dundees kind of fill the bottom of the table, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Just pre Jim McLean years.
Rob, you had Livingston. So let's talk about. Oh, the look on your face, Cam, says it all.
Yeah, no, Livingston, I think let's see here. They're 8th, so they're not doing terribly. They did have a good start to the season, beating Celtic. I think that did them good. However, I think the last few games have not gone totally. I think they just lost to Rangers recently. But they're again, they're a floating mid team. They're that team with the Astro pitch that nobody in Scotland likes to play on whatsoever.
The Tony Macaroni Arena, or as I like to call it, the Pasta Bowl.
I will say the name of the stadium is absolutely beautiful. Tony Macaroni Arena, and then them with Tony Macaroni all over their jerseys. It's fantastic. I know Coach G loves it. He's all about it. You should have picked Livingston, Coach G.
Love it.
But no, they're another team that is kind of a filler team. Unfortunately, I think in seasons past and even now, I mean, the Astro pitch has always been a benefit for them because, as I say, they're the one team usually in the top tier that plays on an Astro pitch. And I don't know for you guys, in the Bundesliga or EPL, if there's really any teams that play with the Astro pitch. No, okay. Italy, anywhere like that? No.
The only teams that play on an Astro pitch that we would deal with are in the MLS.
That's what I was saying.
And there are several.
Atlanta, Seattle.
Atlanta and Seattle are the most obvious two because, Seattle, it rains a lot, and Atlanta plays in a dome. I think there are rules that prohibit using an artificial pitch in the Premier League, the Bundesliga, Ligue 1, Serie A, and La Liga, right? And even like World Cup stadiums, I don't think maybe now you can. It'll be very interesting when you bring up that because, for instance, there's a lot of teams in Canada. Vancouver, for example, who would when we have the World Cup here in 2026, they play on an artificial field. Whether or not they will allow that now. When the World Cup was here in 1994, they had to play on real grass, which meant that stadiums like Giant Stadium, like the Pontiac Astrodome that had artificial turf fields at the time, actually had to lay down indoor natural grass fields to play World Cup games. Pontiac Silverdome still the only fully domed stadium to hold a World Cup game on a natural field. Now they tore that thing out because we all know that real grass is going to die within a couple of weeks on an artificial surface. But the AstroTurf that we're talking about at that time, a lot different than the stuff that they play on right now in Seattle. I've seen a couple of European games played on artificial pitches. I've seen a couple of qualifiers played on artificial pitches, but yeah, it's unusual to have to deal with one.
So this is a question, I guess, for the group, so to say. Do you think that gives a team an advantage in terms of playing other teams that are used to that grass pitch? I mean, AstroTurf, the idea is it's supposed to mimic grass, but
faster. It's a faster game.
That's the thing. The ball moves faster is the biggest difference I can think of.
And unnatural bounces too. Like I say, during the game, you get a huge divot, throughout the game. Later in the game, the ball hits that divot and goes to the right or go to the left, like stuff like that. The little nuances of the game that natural pitches just gets rid of. So I'm not a big fan of it. I know there's been a lot of data also about their the little black rubbers, about a lot of the kids are inhaling it, who's causing cancer and stuff like that. Sometimes it gets under kids' skins. Sometimes it's more.
And the New Orleans pause.
Yeah.
Raises its ugly head again.
So I want to
New
talk
Orleans
about
freeze,
Livingston.
I think I should say.
I want to talk about Livingston real quick. So, as a lot of us we like Celtic, right? So Livingston taking points
easier on the body.
Celtic. Oh, there he goes. There's Coach G again.
God dang, man. I like grass, which is a goalie. It's easier to fall and everything else. The natural and this other natural grass is so much better. I had a great, good minute speech right there. I was all gung ho. I come back and I'm like, crap, man, my bad.
Yeah, that happens. You talked for 2 minutes, of which we got about 10 seconds.
It was stuff that you can write down in book and sell for millions of dollars. It's one of those kind of stuff. It just sucks about New Orleans.
Yes, but nobody will ever know because of the New Orleans pause. All right, Cam, we got Chelsea Mike joining us, so it is a perfect time to talk about Hearts.
Hold on, Rob. Finish your point, Rob, on Livingston.
Yeah. Just on Livingston. They take away points from Celtic, and they're all high and mighty, right? But then they go up against Rangers, and they do nothing. They're awful. Then they beat Dundee United, right? Who are in the top half of the table, and then barely beat Ross County, who are second to last place, and on an 89th minute winner. I mean, not winner, goal. So they're really, really confusing. They had every opportunity to get to the top half of the table, and they said, no, we want no part of that. We want, unless we're playing Celtic, then they're going to take a couple points away. But no, other than that, no way. They do play Motherwell coming up. Then they play some awful teams, which doesn't mean anything according to Livingston, which is Dundee FC and St. Johnstone. So they're supposed to get hopefully 6 points out of those 3 games. But you never know. For all we know, they're gonna take a point away from Motherwell and then drop all points to Dundee and St. Johnstone. So Livingston to me have been very frustrating. I chose them because I used to live in West Orange, and the town over is Livingston, New Jersey. So it's just easier for me to recognize. But yeah, they've been very, very frustrating to watch them all season because they do well, and then when they're not supposed to, and they do awful when they're supposed to do decently. So I'm going to lose my hair watching Livingston. Thank you.
And to that point, I truly think if they didn't have an Astro pitch, I think they would really be more of a revolving door team than they are. They occasionally drop down, they come back up, but the past few years they've stayed up. And I think, I think if I was to look at the data, I think it would probably coincide with around the time that they got that Astro pitch, being the only top flight team in Scotland with that. I think that just gives them that extra advantage. It just keeps them hanging on by a thread every season.
All right, so we're going to round out our Scotland segment with a discussion of Hearts, and then it's time for Chelsea Mike and the lower leagues.
Yeah, so with Hearts, I think right now anyone following Hearts is going to be a big fan of Jamie Walker. He's been able to keep the team in third place. They played, who did they play last? Got tidbits of the game. Whoever they played last, he managed to come in, get that goal, keep them in third place. So they're sitting nice right now. Hearts are looking good, but again, I will say it's not an unusual spot for them to be in. It's usually one form of Rangers or Celtic up top, and then Aberdeen, Hearts, and Hibs in those kind of final third places. But I do think Hearts is, they've been playing well. They played well against Rangers, narrow miss there, and then against Celtic as well recently. Their schedule coming up is a number of teams down in that bottom six split. So I think they have a really, really good opportunity to keep themselves up in the top six split. Unlike teams like Hibs, they're going to have a more difficult time. Hearts have gotten most of their difficult games out at the beginning of the season. So I think we're definitely going to be seeing Hearts sitting in third coming into the end of January. Where I think the biggest mismatch is going to be between Hibs, Aberdeen, and Dundee. I think that's the flashpoint of the SPFL table where it's all going to come down to the wire. But as I say, I think Hearts is going to stick third. They have a solid team. Jamie Walker is pulling it out for Hearts right now. So I don't really have too much doubt there.
So I've been studying up on my geography of Scotland, Cam, mostly because I'm trying to find decide whether I like Lowlands or Highlands Scotch better. I've had some good Lowland Scotch. I need to get some more Lowland Scotch. As Larry tells me, go for the Highlands. Highlands is really solid, but I want to try some more Lowland. Am I correct? Ross County is the only Highlands team in the Scottish Premiership right now?
In top tier, Inverness is out. Inverness is in the Cinch Championship. Ross County. I'm trying to think.
Yes.
I think so. Yeah. I think because if Inverness was in, they're a Highland team, but I think it's just Ross County right now.
So Ross County are the only Highlands team in the. Okay, so they do Scotch well in the Highlands, but apparently they don't play football well in the Highlands.
No. I would say to your whiskey comment, favorite whiskey is always Speyside whiskey for me. So if you've ever had Macallan, anything like that, Macallan is by far my favorite whiskey. So just a heads up to give it a try if you haven't.
Yeah, I'll get more of that. I have a lot of Glenfiddich right now.
I like that. That's my kind of go-to, like everyday type whiskey. Yep.
I'll get some more Macallan. All right, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an Islay Scotch kind of guy.
Smoky.
Don't get me wrong. I was married once, and on my honeymoon, I went to the Highlands, drank a bunch of Scotch. I like it, but I like the peatiness of the Isleys. So.
Okay. Yeah, there's some Islas I like. Some are just that little bit too over the top with how smoky they are. But Talisker, I'm a big fan of. Talisker's nice.
I'm
Talisker
taking
10,
notes.
that's my go-to.
I'm taking notes. Larry brought out 2 bottles of Macallan. Not 1, but 2.
Both of them are empty right now too, so I'm not happy about that.
That's how they should be. Yeah.
Good point.
All right. As Chelsea Mike drinks out of his Eagles mug, which probably has Scotch in it.
No. The alcohol's in the clear jar.
Okay. Yeah, I'm doing the New Year's show drinking moonshine. Just putting that out there. Talk about the lower leagues as we wrap up this tour around places that we don't talk about that much.
Yeah. So, I mean, the lower leagues, English football. We'll start out with the championship. I mean, story of the season, really, Fulham and Bournemouth they seem to have put themselves in a position to run away with the first 2 spots. And then December came, and now they've come back to earth. I caught the Fulham game today. They lost 1-0 to Sheffield United. Sheffield United recently demoted out of the Premier League after a historically bad season. But they've been recovering well. They've won 4 of their last 5. But the story of their beginning was one of potential double relegation, where they started off so poorly that they were down at the bottom of the table. I think what's interesting to me is that the team of the month seems to have been Blackburn Rovers. Blackburn has been good this season, but they've sort of turned on the Jets as we've come into the festive holiday season. Right now, they're sitting only 3 points behind Fulham. They haven't missed any games. I made a callous joke on a text about the lower leagues respecting life, but they've had a lot of cancellations and stuff too. So as goes the Premier League, so will go the lower leagues in terms of cancellations and matches filled. I don't know how they're going to do with less, if you don't have enough players. We'll see, because they don't have big academies. But like I said, big story right now this year in the championship. Fulham, led by Alexander Mitrovic, who leads all of England in goals, and Bournemouth. Again, both of them seem to be running away. Both of them are winless in the last 5. Meanwhile, Blackburn Rovers 5 out of the last 5. So that's what's going on in the top of the table. The bottom of the table, of course, you had the saga of Derby County. Derby County they've lost 21 points due to having gone into administration. They were a team that barely survived last year, so their place wasn't guaranteed with. But despite that, they've shown a bunch of heart, and have really been fighting for the fans up there. It's good, the Derby County guys. They had transfer bans. They're bringing guys through. But they are showing a lot of heart in games. They're winning sometimes. The first couple, they always seem to respond to a points deduction, oddly. But Stead, one thing I wanted to talk about that
I actually want to back up. I did want to give Wayne Rooney some credit.
Yep.
Was they had, so they're sitting on 4 points, right? Which means after a 21-point deduction, they've won enough. They've gotten enough to get 25 points. Right. Wayne Rooney they've drawn 10 games. They've won 5. They've drawn 10. They've lost 5 of their 20 games that they've played so far. That would be good enough to put them up level in 19th place. I don't think that anybody's going to sit there and say like Wayne Rooney is the next Ralph Ragnick, Sir Alex Ferguson, anything like that. But can we give him credit for what he's actually accomplished? But then you deal with the fact that they're not going to get sold like they had intended to this month. They've got Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs doesn't seem like they're going to waive that £26 million tax bill. There's the 2 lawsuits out against them, and they still haven't identified a preferred buyer, which means this will not be settled before the end of the transfer window, which is unfortunate for the team because they have a lot of contracts that are about to run out. Oh, geez, and my jersey just fell. They have a lot of contracts that are about to run out mid-January. We think that survival is outside of the realm of possibility for them. Can they avoid liquidation is the bigger question.
I mean, to me, the Football League, in everything they've said and done, more so than other teams that have gotten the death penalty, if you will, over the last couple of years, they seem to be more committed. Again, Derby has been there longer. They've got a bigger fan base. It's really going to be a lot. But folding that team is an option, or it is a possibility. It's certainly not. It's not a 0% thing. And really, that would be an incredible shame. But also, I mean, what can you do?
All right. As we're running low on time, I want to make sure, just for the benefit of London Sean, that we get to this real quick. Talk about Exeter. how's it going for them down in
Terrible week. Terrible
Oh,
week.
terrible.
Yeah, we lost 1-0. We lost at home to Northampton 2-1, who were at the time second, went next to a third, and then they buggered up again and lost another game 1-0 at home. So I think we've fallen. Is that right? Have we fallen some places, Mike? I don't know. I think we might have now fallen to 5th or worse than that.
Oh, you've come back
So-
to me. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, I was
your
wondering if you knew
final
where
playoff
Exeter
spot
had-
in 7th.
That's 7th now, yeah. So it's not good, although there's only 3 points between us and 3rd.
Another saga that we were covering, especially earlier, was Wigan Athletic and their unfortunate demise. How are Wigan faring in League One?
Well, Wigan are doing pretty well. They're up in 2nd place and have been up in the top 1 to 5. The thing about League One is that it's got a very fluid. It's been very fluid amongst the top 10 teams, but Wigan have regularly been up there and above that. They've regularly been in the playoff teams so far this entire year. And you know, there's the Wigan redemption story. There's the Sunderland's in 3rd. They're only 2 points behind Wigan, although Wigan has a game in hand. There's that redemption story, and of course, there's Rotherham and Wickham. Wickham is actually suing the FA because they got demoted last year instead of Derby County. I'm sorry, the league. They're suing the league.
They're also suing Derby County.
Yeah. So that's part of the championship story, League One, but they've got their own redemption story and sitting in 4th. Wigan, it should be reminded, has won the FA Cup in less than 10 years ago. And are in League One. So Wigan are doing well. And they're starting to excel into the places where at least being in the playoff is starting to look secure.
All right. So London Sean, right now over in the States, it is college football bowl season.
Mm-hmm.
There are 9,375 college bowl games that will be played across the next 3 days. No, I exaggerate. There are like over 40 of them, but it's a big deal. We love it, right? You get to see your alma mater play in the Who's a What's Its Face.com Bowl in Breakneck, Iowa, but it's a good time, right? Mike, in the spirit of college bowl season, give us the top 3 lower league bowl games that we need to watch over the festive period, if you've got them.
No, I don't have them, honestly. I haven't looked out into the entire festive season. I was pumped for today with the Fulham game, but I don't have it. I'm sorry.
No, and it's my fault. I should have told you to do that earlier, but I literally just thought about that 3 minutes ago, so I couldn't give you forewarning. All right, gentlemen, it has been fun. I want to start by wishing each and every one of you and your family a very, very, very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, just in case we don't decide that we're so bored with our families and spouses that we want to get together and talk next Tuesday. So a very happy New Year's, Boxing Day. Happy Christmas, Hana Kwanzaa to all.
You too, Mike. Appreciate it, man. Have a good Christmas, brother.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas
Thanks,
to
man.
one
Merry
and to all, Merry Christmas to everybody and to all a good night. I want to thank and wish a happy holiday to the entire cast of to Too Many Guys Soccer Show, those who are on tonight and those who haven't been. So London Sean, not London Sean, Andy the Hammer, El Haji, Peter,
Will,
British Will. Instead, am I missing anybody who's been
Coach
on this?
Matt.
Coach Matt, who we'll see tomorrow.
Los.
And Los, who's celebrating his 34th wedding anniversary. Congratulations, Los. How I almost forgot about Los, I don't know. I hope you all enjoy a restful couple of days, spend time with your families, drink, eat, and be merry. That said, we had a good show tonight. We did all right this week. We'll try and do better next week. So, to London Sean, Byron Rob, Coach G, Chelsea Mike, Celtic Cam, Larry the Insurance Guy, and of course, Producer Stead. Thank you very much. Have a happy holiday. And in the words of Tiny Tim, God bless us, everyone. Peace.